welcome to the Real Estate Pro Radio Show. I'm your host, Amber Arms, and we have with us today Bill Dare from Perkiomenville, Pennsylvania. All right. Well, Bill, thank you for coming on with the show with us today. Let's just hop right into this. Tell us a little bit about who you are as a person. Who is Bill the person?
Hi, Amber. Thanks for having me on. I'm married for 40 years and have two teenage sons. One's in college and one's graduating this year from high school and going to college next year. I'm a car guy. I've got a couple of cars that I've been working on, and I really enjoy. That's my biggest hobby interest. I love everything about real estate and construction. Done a lot of different things in the real estate world, from being a landlord with almost 100 apartments and flipping dozens of houses and doing a lot of the work myself. So that's kind of what got me to where I am today, and really appreciate the opportunity to discuss it with you further.
That's amazing. And so you mentioned that you've been in the real estate industry for a while. What do you typically do in the industry? What's your primary occupation?
Well, at this point, I own a company that operates 7 different inspectors. So we have guys in the field doing home inspections, stucco inspections, mold, radon thermography, which is basically using a specialized camera to see temperature differentials, pools, termite, which everybody, thinks of. It's really a wood-destroying insect inspection. So when we can do single, we do a bunch of commercial properties. So a lot of the business revolves primarily around doing home inspections, either before the house goes on the market in preparation for that, or once a house goes under contract, it would be inspected. And that's your typical home inspection. Most people do radon testing, which we do in-house, and termite. There are additional inspections, and we do a lot of what everybody calls a stucco inspection, but it's really more a building envelope. It has to do with moisture getting behind the siding material, which could be anything from stucco to brick to stone and vinyl, cement board. So there's specialized inspections that we do because the damage behind some of that material is extensive, and it's very expensive to fix. So the whole stucco / building envelope inspection business is probably what we're better known for in the marketplace, even though we technically do more home inspections than we do stucco inspections.
That makes a ton of sense. It sounds like Spotlight has a pretty big, variety of services they provide. What's your general service area? That's quite the service repertoire you got there.
Yeah, we cover it all, one-stop shop. We don't do absolutely everything in-house, but we do almost everything in-house. We cover all the way from the Jersey Shore up to just south of Trenton. So basically all of South Jersey. We cover Philadelphia, all the way out to Reading, from the Lehigh Valley down to the Delaware line. So we're covering basically all of southeastern PA and all of South Jersey at this point. We don't go into Delaware for home inspections. However, we can do building envelope inspections in Delaware. They have licensing for home inspectors, which we're working on, but we haven't gotten there yet.
That's amazing, and it sounds like it's a really successful business. How did you get into the industry? How did you get involved in the business?
Well, I had a different business for a long time, in addition to having the rental properties and flipping houses, and I sold that business about almost 20 years ago, about 19 years ago now. And when I sold it, I really was looking for an opportunity to do something that didn't have a lot of overhead, a lot of like brick and mortar. That business I had before had, building and overhead and lots of things. So I had been preparing to be a home inspector. I didn't know it, but all my life, because there's nothing I haven't broken more than once and had to fix myself. And in the course of owning all those apartments and flipping all those houses, basically I've had to deal with everything that has to do with a building. So when I sold that other business, I thought the home inspection business was really something that interested me. At the time, it was a low overhead business that wouldn't cost me a lot. If I wasn't busy, it wasn't going to cost me a lot to have things sitting around. fast forward to today, now we have a huge overhead, a fleet of vehicles, multiple employees, benefits packages, and so it kind of got away from me to a point where
kind of exploded a bit into something bigger.
Right. So that's how I got into it initially. So I really was just looking for something that I could do on, just me and a truck and a ladder and a flashlight kind of thing.
Right. So starting really small, and it just kind of grew from there. Since you've been in the industry for as long as you have, how would you say things have changed over time since when you first got started back over 20 years ago?
They've changed really dramatically. Ironically, one of the biggest changes has been the cameras. When I got into the business, you would literally take a disposable camera with you, a regular 35 millimeter camera, and take the pictures, and then stop by CVS or Walgreens or whatever, and have them hour developed, so you could then scan them in a flatbed scanner to get them into the report. It was ridiculously complicated and cumbersome, because there were digital cameras, but they were really, basically today were
expensive.
Most of our, and they were very poor. They were running at 512 bits, and we're running at 12 megapixels now. So the pictures would not work out. And then, so the digital cameras, and, that was the next step where the digital cameras became good enough. And now all my guys just use their phone. The cameras on the new phones are amazing. So that's a huge difference. The other big difference in the company, in the business since I got here, is the use of drones to get on steep roofs that we couldn't otherwise get to, or look at the tops of chimneys. So every one of my guys has a really nice drone with a 4K fully stabilized. It's ridiculous. They take fantastic pictures. So I do think you should get on the roof if you can, but there are certainly a lot of roofs in the course of a week that we can't get onto. So the drone has changed that. Other than that, it's just a people business. That hasn't changed. The business is all about the people. So that piece has been consistent throughout.
Absolutely. And, a lot of things have changed over the past couple of years, especially with COVID and all of that. How do you think that the home inspection market looks like for 2022, going into the new year here?
Well, in our market, which is southeastern PA and Jersey, we are really tight on inventory. Right now, they tell me that we're sitting on about 2 weeks of inventory, so that if no other houses got put on the market in 2 weeks, we'd be completely exhausted. Philadelphia's a little bit longer. I think Philadelphia proper is sitting at about a month inventory, but they consider 6 months to be a balanced market. So I don't see that changing dramatically anytime soon. Even if a lot of houses started coming onto the market right now, you're not going to fill that pipeline that rapidly. So I think we're going to be in a seller's market, essentially, which means that the buyers, there's more buyers than sellers, and it's difficult to find what you want. So that has really, I think that's going to continue for 2022. I don't think we're going to see any kind of overstock of inventory. We're just going to continue with that.
Do you think that that'll continue maybe even to 2023 or 2024 as well? Or do you think things will start to, change and maybe come more to an equilibrium?
Well, generally speaking, that happens. Being old like I am, I've seen this occur a few times where the market gets, zenith hot, and then, something happens. Right now we're dealing with some stuff overseas that hasn't really impacted us in the real estate market. It's more on the fuel, but something dramatic there could actually compel it to do something. So the market can change. I don't like to think too much beyond it in the year, because 2023, there's just so many things. Interest rates are going to more than likely go up. I think that some of that will impact the overall marketplace. But no, I don't think anytime soon. Within the next 12 months, we're certainly not going to make the dramatic shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market, short of some catastrophe that nobody's talking about yet.
Right. There's a lot of things that can happen in that period of time, and we're really only going to know when we get a little bit closer. So that makes complete sense. You were mentioning how it's kind of a seller's market. What would you say is the biggest challenge your clients are facing in today's market?
Well, their challenges are multiple. I mean, first off, getting to work with a good real estate agent is paramount to your success. The other challenge that they're facing is obviously finding someplace that's reasonably priced, that's in that dots all their I's and crosses all their T's. And then lastly, the negotiations have become bonkers, where they're having to go over asking price, waive inspections, which is really kind of foolish to do. But that's the kind of market that these people are dealing with when they're buying a house today in our marketplace. Well, I think this is pretty nationwide. I think for the most part, most of the country is dealing with this same situation.
Yeah, except for probably a couple of pockets. I feel like it's probably pretty similar across most of the U.S. right now. With COVID, some of the people have been talking about, really felt like that things slowed down for a little bit, and now we have all this pent-up demand that we're dealing with on the back end. So it's definitely seeming like that's kind of a nationwide issue from what I've been talking with people for.
I agree. I think that COVID made it more difficult for to get into a house. People were concerned about, when we show up, sometimes there's 3 or 4 inspectors, and you've got clients and clients' friends, and it can become a little congested in the house. So there were a number of people, particularly people that wanted to retire and move to warmer climates, they're just been sitting on the sidelines waiting for this, because they didn't want to put their house on the market and deal with all that traffic. So I think that'll ease up. It's probably already started to ease up, with some of the reduction in restrictions. So right. I think that aspect of the market has already begun to change and will continue to change. I think, the more I get out there day to day, we're seeing far less people wearing masks, and the mask mandates are basically lifted. So I hope everybody kind of just gets comfortable and still takes whatever precautions they feel are necessary for themselves. Mm-hmm. But I think we can operate much better now.
Absolutely. And, with the market being what it is, and you're mentioning some people even waiving inspections, I feel like picking a good home inspector matters more now than ever. What would people be looking for in a good home inspector? What makes a good home inspector stand out from the rest of the crowd?
Well, experience is obviously going to be the number one motivator. I think that if you're going to question an inspector, you want to see a copy of their report. It should be detailed. It should be, 30 plus pages long. If you get a copy of somebody's report and it's only a half a dozen pages, and it doesn't have pictures and descriptions, then you should move on. So a good home inspection company should be able to provide you with a copy of a sample copy of their report. And most of our reports are closer to 50 pages, 40 to 50 pages. I mean, obviously some smaller houses might be a little less. We've had reports in excess of 100 pages. So that's one thing that you can do. Second thing is you can ask them what their association is. There's essentially 2 out there, which is InterNACHI and ASHI. You want to be sure that they're a member in good standing with one of those 2 associations. ASHI's been around a lot longer, but they're both certified by the state of PA because the state of Pennsylvania requires that you belong to one of those associations, which picks up continuing education. So you want to make sure they're a member of a good association. You want to see a copy of the report. If you want, you can ask for insurance documents. Most good inspectors should be prepared to give you a certificate of insurance. And then you should, if you get an opportunity, if you're really concerned about it, you should talk directly to the inspector and get a comfort level. Ask them questions about their, more or less what we're doing here, about their personal life and whatnot. And then lastly, if you like your real estate agent and you trust your real estate agent, which you should, why else are we working with them if not? Your agent has dealt in this so many more times, and it's not a bad idea to stick with a recommendation from your real estate agent or a friend of yours that has used a company. I always find that's how we get all our work. We don't hardly advertise at all, and we get our work from real estate agents that recommend us because they like us. So we want to, you want to take that opportunity as well to trust somebody that's been doing this, many times a year versus, the stereotypical buyer does this once every 5 to 10 years.
This episode is brought to you by We Insure Center of Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. With access to over 200 carriers, We Insure is ready to service all of your insurance needs for home, auto, business, life, and more. Simply call 484-207-6640. Again, that's 484-207-6640, or visit WeInsureCenter.com. Get your free quote today. Right, and that makes a ton of sense, relying on, other people's expertise and experience. These real estate agents, they're, some of the really busy ones are closing hundreds of deals a year. So they're dealing with all sorts of different issues and different, inspectors and, insurance people. And there's just so many different things and challenges they have to overcome. So it really makes a lot of sense to, kind of rely on their expertise on that point.
Yeah, I like to bring it back home to the client and say, I assume that you're good at your job, right? You know what you do for a living. And, so each one of these people in this transaction, the home inspector, the real estate agent, the insurance person, all these different people are all highly trained individuals that I think that are prepared to do a good job for you. I mean, there's certainly going to be hierarchy in all this. Some people are better than others. But in general, I think the home inspection industry is somewhat self-purging. If you're no good, you don't last long.
Exactly. And, the home inspection industry isn't something that I can say that a lot of people know a lot about. What would you say is a common misconception when people come in and start talking to you for the first time? Maybe it's their first house. What is a common misconception they may have about how the industry works?
Well, I think that it goes both ways. So from the standpoint of, I believe most people think you can predict the future and see through walls. And, I think that that's an expectation thing that we try to manage on site right away, that, we can only inspect what we can see. We're not cutting holes in the walls. And if there's a large pile of stored items in front of something, we can't really see behind it. So there are some limitations. I think that's a misconception that somehow we're going to find everything that was ever wrong with a house, and that's just not true. The second misconception, I think, is the biggest thing for mostly for real estate agents, but that somehow we're going to try to terminate their transaction. And I just think that's ridiculous. I mean, I want my buyer to buy the house. When we're working for a buyer and doing an inspection, we want that transaction to go through. We're not trying to be overly hard on the house. We're trying to be straightforward and honest. We're trying to give that person as much data as we can and answer questions. But the notion that somehow I have a vested interest in that dealing not going to the closing table is ridiculous. I want my buyer to buy it. We get that question repeatedly, multiple times a week, and the answer is emphatically yes. We may need to talk about some things. There may be some things you want to talk to your agent or a contractor about. But the assumption is we're going to be buying the house. Now, obviously, that doesn't always work out. But we just generally want them to go to the table or go to the inspection, with that notion. And the last piece is we do a lot of pre-listing inspections. It's a great tool if you're going to be selling your house to have it inspected beforehand. The information is going to come to you one way or the other. We just would rather have the ability to talk to you about it and talk about, what it is that's going to be a concern for a buyer. And during that inspection, I think most of the people that get it done are all worried that they're going to have to somehow fix everything that's found. And that's just not the truth. Disclosure is important. You're selling a used house. It's okay to say, my handrails aren't 36 inches high and there's a high step at the bottom of the deck. We're not going to fix those things. We just want you to know about them. So it's an opportunity to disclose to the prospective buyers what it is you're selling them. It also insulates a significant amount of liability. In these cases where people are waiving their inspections, the liability for that does not go away. In fact, in my humble opinion, the liability is through the roof for the seller and for the seller's agent. Because if you think about how that buyer got to the house, they had to more than likely overpay, basically, to get the house. So they're going to offer over asking. Then they're going to waive inspections, which, again, we believe is a really bad idea. But then they're going to get in the house, and if something's not right, they're going to assure themselves that the whole waiving the inspection thing was not their idea. It was somebody else's idea. And, oh, by the way, you must have known all this. And so now we're unhappy, and we may consult with a lawyer. And we've seen a 40% increase. PAR, the Pennsylvania Realtors Association, has seen a 40% increase in calls to the legal hotline about what are called failure to disclose cases. So we don't believe that the liability risk is insignificant when inspections are waived. It just comes back to haunt you later. So the pre-listing inspection inserts us in that liability chain to help insulate the seller.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. A lot of people, I think that they do have that same perception that you mentioned on how if they're knowing about it, then they're going to have to essentially fix it for a buyer to buy the house. It's definitely a good point you made on how it's more about the liability than, we need to fix everything and make this the perfect house. It's just proper disclosure and liability protection for the seller. That makes a ton of sense, actually.
Yeah, and I think that filling out the seller's disclosure is important, but if you fill out the seller's disclosure and then hand the prospective buyer a copy of the pre-listing inspection, because we don't pull any punches, it's the same inspection we would do for the buyer. Most of the time, the buyer is like, I'll accept this, and they'll waive their own inspection because they have all the information. And then we take it one step further and offer for a reduced fee to walk the buyer through the house and review our inspection report, and we'll issue the report with their name on it so that they are now our client too. So that, because the first thing in most reports says, if your name's not on this report, you can't talk to me about it. So we'll actually re-engage with the buyer and reissue the pre-listing report with their name on it.
That's fantastic, actually. That's a pretty good system. You were mentioning how some people are buying a home without an inspection. Why should they be talking with, you guys specifically for Spotlight? What really makes you guys stand apart, particularly if they're thinking about waiving inspections?
Well, obviously, we think we do a great job. We're a one-stop shop. So you call the office and schedule the inspection. You tell them whatever inspections you want. There's only a couple, such as septic and water testing, that we don't do. We do basically everything else in-house. So we're a one-stop shop. We've been doing this for a long time. All of our guys are highly trained. And then a lot of what I personally get involved in is the follow-up, because I think that the communication chain doesn't end at the inspection. I think that the buyer and the seller should have an opportunity to discuss things with the inspector 6 days, 6 months, 6 years from now. If you've got a problem or a question, we've got a problem or a question, so let's go over it. We are the best resource for a homeowner because we don't work on houses. We're not even allowed to work on a house for 12 months. So we don't have that mechanism of, hey, we're going to find this problem and let's give you a proposal to fix it. We are simply doing inspections. So we're what's called a disinterested third party. That's what the state wants us to be. We're not interested in whether the house sells or it doesn't sell. We're not interested in what work needs to be done. We're simply there to evaluate the property to the best we can. So I believe Spotlight does that better than most, and we have a lot of guys in the field, so we can bring a lot to bear. We can bring 7 guys on site if need be. We've done a number already this year of very large multi-million-dollar houses, and so we've gotten a full team of guys so that it goes quickly and efficiently. Because if you've got one inspector team doing a 13,000 square foot house, it's exhausting. That guy's completely drained 7 hours later when he's finally done. So there's a lot.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, actually. How do you actually do those super large inspections? Most people, when they're buying a house, they get one inspector that comes through. How is it different when you're doing those large houses with that entire team coming in?
So it's a dance. It's something that we coordinate before we show up. So we assign different parts of the house to different inspectors. The software that we use enables us to have multiple guys feeding into a single report, and then everything gets compiled and reviewed afterwards, so that each guy has a speciality. Obviously, in life, some guys are better at heating and air conditioning than roofing, and so everybody moves to their strength, and we just get through it.
That's amazing. That's super cool, actually. I'd definitely like to see that in action one day. It sounds like a really cool system you guys have set up. And you've been in the industry for a long time. 20 years is nothing to scoff at. What would you say is the best part about the industry and why you stuck around for so long?
I think this is the greatest industry I've ever been in. I love everything about the inspection marketplace. I love everything about real estate. It's changing people's lives. So you're basically doing something that is significantly impacting someone's life. You're taking them from a place that they may have lived in for years and taking them to a place that they want to live in now. So it's literally not something that's, selling widgets out of the back of a truck. You're literally changing people's lives. You're talking to them directly. You're educating them on their house. You're interacting at a very personal level with them. That's what a great home inspection is, and that's what I love about the business. It's, as I said earlier, it's not as much about houses as it is about people. Everybody's got their own idiosyncrasies. We've had people that were really concerned with carbon monoxide because they had an issue at school where they almost died from a carbon monoxide poisoning. So, we tailor each inspection. If there's particular items that somebody's overly concerned about that they've had maybe problems with in another house, we want to help to alleviate that concern or fully answer all those questions. So that's what I love about this business. It's a moving target to some extent, but it's a moving target in a way that I enjoy and my guys all enjoy is the getting to the people and understanding what they want out of this inspection and tell them what we believe they should get out of it, and then coming together and putting that all in a blender, so to speak, and coming out with a great inspection where when they leave that property, they know what they need to know and they're comfortable.
Absolutely. For most people, making such a large decision, buying a house or selling a house, is honestly one of the biggest investments that they'll ever make in their lifetime. So helping them make a good decision when they're, deciding whether or not they should buy a house or, that they understand what it is that they're buying, I feel like that's a really big responsibility.
Absolutely. And we love every minute of it. And all my guys feel the same way or they wouldn't be here.
That's wonderful. And that's wonderful that the whole company is like that too. It sounds like you guys have a good team of inspectors that, all want the same thing for their clients, and that's amazing. Speaking about Spotlight, do you have any sort of events or exciting announcements that are coming up for, people in the industry?
Yeah, it's great. We just sponsored some events in South Jersey, so we're trying to get into real estate offices. If somebody hears this and wants to call the office, we're happy to provide what we call lunch and learn, where we'll come in, we'll help to educate your agents about a particular subject matter that you can choose, or we'll bring our own. We have an event coming up for the Greater Philadelphia Realtors Association on the 23rd at 9 o'clock. We're doing a Zoom conference for them to discuss the inspection challenges in the city of Philadelphia. I just got done speaking at the Penn State's engineering school has an outreach arm called the PHRC, the Pennsylvania Housing Research Center, which does educational components for building inspectors, municipal inspectors, architects, engineers, and builders. And I was honored to speak at two different sessions there about the whole building envelope challenges that we're facing and some of the new code compliance issues that have just kicked in February. The building code changed from International Residential Code 2015 to International Residential Code 2018. So the builders have to be aware of all this. So those are some of the events that we've done recently, and we're always trying to be involved in supporting the marketplace.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you guys are super busy with the things coming up, and that's super exciting. We'll definitely have to check that out. We've kind of touched about it in some of the questions earlier, but we just kind of want to, bring it home and kind of, bring it into one general question here. Why should our audience, talk to Spotlight? Why are you guys the best place to call for a home inspection?
Well, I think calling the office and dealing with the girls there, so there's a number of girls in the office that'll be able to take your information and disseminate it. It gets logged into a computer system. We do auto notifications so that when it's scheduled, everybody gets an email, everybody gets a text message to tell, to remind them when this is happening. The office will get contracts signed. Everything's done basically virtually. So the information goes out via email or text, and signatures can happen online. The payment can happen online through a credit card. The reports are delivered online. So it just expedites the entire process. So we're generally delivering reports the next morning. So we do the inspection today. By the next morning, you'll have the report, unless it was something that was really complicated or really big. That takes a little longer. But we try to streamline it. We obsess about the process and about what it is that we do well, and we try to make sure that's a good, complete package for the client.
That's wonderful. It sounds like you guys have a very thorough process in place, and that's always a good thing when you have those detail-oriented type of companies. If somebody wanted to reach out to set up a home inspection, or to reach out as an agent in New Jersey, what's the best way to contact you guys?
So you can call the office on the phone number, which is 215-234-0505. You can go onto the website. There's online scheduling on the website, which is spotlighthi.com. The HI stands for home inspection, so spotlighthi.com. Or you can email the office at office@spotlighthi.com. We're easy to get a hold of. There's some great videos on the website about what a home inspection is all about, what a stucco inspection is all about. So there's a lot of good data on there for you to do a little bit of homework, for the clients to do a little bit of homework before they actually call us to get comfortable.
That's wonderful. Sounds like you guys got a good series of ways to contact you. And look, Bill, I appreciate you spending the time and getting on here with me today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Amber, it was a pleasure. I appreciate it. Anything we can do, let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.